In the 101st NFL season, there will be no preseason games.
Oh, damn.
Somebody say, damn it, back there? It is frustrating, isn't it?
It is.
Is that you, Foxy? You said, damn it?
No, I didn't. But I didn't realize how big of a deal this was to the players. Like, that's just a basic-ass fan saying that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, in Detroit, you guys probably go undefeated in preseason.
We actually do. We
Yeah.
went 4-0 and then went 0-16. So preseason's pretty awesome.
Well, that is...
That's serious, too.
So, preseason, we talked about this in the first hour, and I guess we could dive back into it, but preseason is something that any player who has made any money in the NFL or played for more than a year in the NFL and already has film of them playing in the NFL absolutely hates. You're making no money. It is a risk of injury. It's a waste of time. So players don't like it, okay? And it's not just about money. It's love of the game. But if you love the preseason game and you tear your ACL, do you still love the regular season as much if you can't play in it? There's just a lot of things that potentially make you go, oh, we hate preseason games. And there are a couple people who do get screwed by this entire thing. And we talked about this in the first hour. Younger players who have never been on the field in the NFL and have no NFL film, they have no chance to potentially earn a job on another team, right? Because everybody thinks preseason games are to prove whether or not they should make the team that they're currently on in the third or fourth quarter. But usually that is much better film for other teams to watch or the team you're playing against to watch to see if you could fit on their team. Because a lot of players, believe it or not, especially in that bottom quarter of the roster, bottom third of the roster, they don't get a position on the roster strictly because of a numbers game. You'll hear a lot of players and coaches say, hey, we had to get rid of blah, blah, blah because we had to bring in another offensive lineman. We had to get rid of blah, blah, blah because we had to bring in another tight end because old buddy hurt himself in practice yesterday and we need bodies for this. Like that happens on a very regular basis. And with those guys not having film in the preseason game, getting a chance to just showcase that you can either keep up with other people that are potentially going to be in the NFL in those preseason game in fourth quarter, you can pick up NFL defense, you can pick up an NFL offense. That film is vital. So for those guys, they are definitely in a bad position here, but I'd say they're also in a bad position because there was no OTAs, there was no rookie minicamp, there was no anything. So it's just COVID-19 came through for the bottom third of the roster and hit them with an elbow drop like Macho Man Randy Savage. But for everybody else that is in the NFL, even coaches, I think coaches just love coaching. They love teaching. If you have a good coach, they just love getting people better. That's why these OTAs have probably been an insane time for coaches because all they want to do is just get out there and work and work and work. But ask those coaches during a preseason game when one of their studs, who's probably going to allow them to either keep their job another year or their position group be good for another year or potentially get their team to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, and they lose a guy in the first preseason game or second preseason game, how they feel about preseason games at that moment. And I would say everybody in the franchise will go, these preseason games are stupid, and it happens. This isn't something that doesn't happen, by the way. This happens, and it's not always star players that happens because they protect them a lot and get them off the field. But whenever you're talking about like the middle of the roster, or like the maybe two-thirds up on the roster, that middle area there, guys go down all the time. Careers are changed. Lives are changed, impacted, strictly because of a game that means nothing, that nobody's making any money to play. And it's just almost to a point where a lot of players are like, this is stupid. But for those young guys, they are screwed without the opportunity to get a spotlight on their game for other NFL teams to see and go, oh, that person's pretty good. Now there's no XFL either. There's no AAFL, CFL. I think they are still a thing, although Edmonton, I believe, had to change their name because they were originally the E-words.
Yep.
I think they should change the Inuits, by the way, which is the proper term that I've been using for the last 10 years. As soon as I heard that, I was like, better word than the E-word.
Yeah.
Much. Inuit's a better word to say, so I just dropped that one in there, just keep it moving. But they are in the middle of a name change as well, so the CFL does exist and will survive this. But that's really the only other game in town other than college football, which we know is probably going to get moved to maybe not this year.
No, 2022.
Have they mentioned?
Whoa.
Connor.
What?
Maybe because, man,
Yes.
you've been saying this for a long time, by the way. You now, when people look at your face, especially right now, you go, you can't take anything that guy says seriously. But like, he has been on that 2022 train for college football for a while now. And the reason is, and I think it's becoming more and more obvious, these aren't football people or sports people making this decision. It has to be for the well-being in the decision makers' eyes for the entire campus, which is students from international students. You got 30,000, 40,000 people there that live there. Those decisions on whether or not a season happens are going to be on them. And will that be fixed? If it's not this year, will that be fixed next year? Do we know? We have no idea. Nobody knows. But you know who potentially does know, maybe? And I don't know if He's throwing an opening pitch this tonight or tomorrow night, so he's got to feel pretty good about sports. Maybe coming back. What's up, Tom?
Have they mentioned, do you know, if they're going to expand practice squads, whether it be for injuries or COVID, because I assume a lot of these guys aren't going to make a team now?
I believe, and this is just my brain operating on what it maybe had read one time, they're going to expand the active roster, but they have, by a few players, but they have lowered the amount of players that go to training camp, which is interesting. Because I would assume that you would want to bring in more people because you don't know who's going to get sick and you want to have more people on contract. But then if you think about what the rules we're living in, more people's not good. So they actually had to get rid of like 10. I don't know if it's 93 players are normally there or 90 players are there. I don't know the exact amount. Now it's 80. It's capped at 80. So it's definitely less than what it has been. There's only one cut period, and all the film is going to be in-house now with preseason. So if you want to see or hear about how another guy is doing, or you're going to see a lot of the coaching staffs that have good relationships with each other, you're going to see a lot of moves via those teams. Not that you don't normally, but that's going to be, you're going to have to rely on people giving you good intel on players that they're not going to keep, that you could potentially want to keep, because you're going to be the only people that have seen practices because they're closed to the public. Coaches are going to be the only people that have seen practices, maybe scouts if you're friends with somebody from somewhere else. But the intel on those younger players, those guys who have never been on the field or on film in the NFL, the intel on them is going to be interesting on how it gets shared. I don't know how that's going to get shared, because you're going to go to Belichick and say, hey, you need to share your practice film with the rest of the NFL, and it's only on the bottom third of your roster we have to see. And Bill Belichick, we got some film we're going to send you. It's just going to be field goal session probably. Here you go. This is what we've been working on. I don't know how they're going to do that. I honestly have no idea how they're going to do that. And how will workouts work? Like if we get to the season, 35, 40 guys are cut from each team. And they're like, well, Pat, there's 80 people and you need to get down to what, 55? Or if they expand it to 60, that's only 20 people. It's like, no. You got to remember that normally you're not just competing against your own roster to make the team. And some young guys do that. They'll look around, they'll be like, okay, I got to outlast 12 guys to make this next cut. And it's like, no. You have to outlast these guys, and then you got to outlast the waiver wire as well that's somewhere else, and you don't even know a side swipe could happen. There's some teams that get down to like 35 players after training camp, and then they're just signing people. It's like when you're playing poker, and you got 5 cards, and you can discard, and you just put all 5 down, give me 5 new ones. Like sometimes that happens for some training camp teams where they cut down to like 40. They're like, all right, we need to pick up at least 13 people off the waiver wire here. And the people that are in that team that do that, they have no idea. They're like, oh, I'm at least in the top 50 here. It's like, well, are you just top 50 here? But what about the other 31 teams as well? How will that information happen? Will they be just try out guys? If you sign them off the waiver, though, you have to have them at least on your team for 5 games, I believe. They're going to have to figure that all out. That is going to have to get figured out through the logistics process of bringing in players to work out if you sign them or you don't sign them, how many people can come in. Those are the things that on the day-to-day that the coaches, I would assume, and scouts are like, well, what the hell do we do here? We watch their Instagrams? Is that what we're just watching Instagrams at this point? That'll be interesting to see how the big brains at the NFL figure that out.
Gambling question for you, because you always say that when you guys would go to camp, the defense would dominate the first few days.
Yeah.
Do you and then I always agree with that, but then Rex said if these teams don't tackle, it's going to be embarrassing week 1. So week 1, are we going unders or overs?
Well, I think we're going overs. And the reason why the defense dominates is because you don't tackle for the first couple weeks in practice. So it's just see ball, get ball. Offense timing is off. Usually players don't know where the hell they're going. And whenever you have your fans at your first couple practices in preseason, they just watch like the defense just smother the offense. It's always I don't want to say it's always, because when we had Peyton and that offense was the same exact offense every single year for like 10 years, there was times where they would just come out and day one, it was just like pum, 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 and the crowd's going crazy. And me and Vinny are on the sideline like, so are we going to have 100 to 100 games? Like what is going on here? But then the defense would catch up. But normally, if it isn't like, for instance, the Chiefs, quite a head start here. The Saints, quite a head start. Tampa, I don't know where they'll be. A lot of vets, a lot of talented people, but they haven't been together, so who knows? Normally, though, if it's an offense that has some new pieces and have to do that, start out real slow. Timing's terrible. And every single year, because I am a recency bias person, I'm like, a lot of punts this year, bro. I need to go hit the Stairmaster. I am not in good enough shape to do what we are about to do, I think, because there were some practices where I don't even think we got a first down. Like first team, second team, third team didn't even get a first down. It's like, oh, Longy, we are going to stink this year, huh? And then everybody always tells me like, yo, come on. see ball, get ball verse, learning an entire new offensive system. Give us a couple weeks here at least before you start expecting to potentially blow your leg out. And I'm like, all right. And then it always happens. It always happens. The offense starts getting better and better and better as you go. But if there's tackling, it's a whole different ballgame, because once the first time you get back to tackling, it is like a whole new world for you, because it's physical, you got to be tactical, you got to be cerebral, and you have to be aggressive when you do it. Some guys don't love it, and a lot of times you can't do it in practice because you only have a certain amount of padded practices, and if you hurt somebody in practice, tackling them in practice, you're probably a coach that's going to get fired. Like, that is just something that happens. So you're always kind of like a catch-22. Like, do we practice the tackling, or do we roll the dice and expect them to know that they're tackling? And I think every single time that people roll the dice and expect them to know how to tackle, normally you hear a commentator go, a lot of missed tackles here early. It's because guys haven't done it in a while. So I think what Rex was alluding to, and I think what I learned about Rex as a coach, he has full go in more than a few periods. But it's all a coach's decision on how healthy, how much banging do you want your team to do with it. There's going to be a lot of balancing here in this entire thing.
Yeah, because you could do thud practices, but that's nowhere near the same as what you're going to see live.
By the way, and thud in college is different than thud in the NFL. So thud, for those that don't know, there's like different padding too. So you go full pads, which is you have your pants on basically. Then there's shells, which is basically just your shoulder pads and your helmet. It's all your upper body stuff. And then there's like skelly stuff, which is just like little pad. You see it in like, it's for walkthroughs, but there's still a little bit of banging you can put your hands on. And then there's obviously just like t-shirts and jerseys or whatever. But the shells are the favorite by everybody because you don't have to put the pants on, which are incredibly tight. You have shorts on and you get to hit a little bit. Normally that is a thud phase, right? So thud is you thud them up. So it's just like a shot. And in college, you thud them up, whistle blows, right? In the NFL, though, you thud them up and then you let them go, let them finish the run, right? So it's like a very different thing. In learning the different levels of physicality for the practice sessions and the periods is a massive thing for the young players, which is also something that I think they missed out on OTAs and learning about, because if you can't practice, you will literally not make a team. If you are a liability in practice because you either fall down, you tackle people, you get people's feet tangled up, you get too close to the quarterback, you will lose a job. Like, it isn't just like, hey, we need you to not fall down whenever you're in there. It's like, yo, you do that again, like, you'll be gone. Because that offensive lineman that we put $30 million into, if he rolls his ankle on you in there, that we can't have that. So like, learning how to practice is a very big deal. And I think thud will probably be the case, but thud isn't tackling either because you can't. It's just like one big thud up, you know? There were some guys, though, that used to just go. LaRon Landry, it was full every single period. That was very interesting. Even walkthrough, he was going 40 miles an hour. He was thudding people. That was the transition process of getting from when LaRon started with us to when he was like, I think people were like feeling okay to be on the same practice field as him, did take a couple weeks because he was going ham. I mean, it was the walkthrough. He was going full speed. I think he hit one of our big name receivers like in the air during a walkthrough. Like, there was some real stuff popping off in conversations. I was like, well, I'm not going to practice with that guy on the field. I'm not going to do it. And it's like, so you get to that point where you got to trust each other, you got to respect each other. But that's what the young guys also have to learn how to do. Training camp is an insane time to try to make an NFL team. There's only 53 spots unless they expand it, which I think they might, a couple spots. Only 32 teams. And like they always say, you get to be here. You don't have to be here. It's a privilege, not a right. And there are literally 4,000 people ready to take your job at any time. Like, actually 4,000 people. And they're tweeting about it. They're posting on Instagram about it. We know exactly who they are. We're actually going to have them work out. You're going to have to watch them work out. Those guys want your job. So you either figure this out or you get the hell on.